You're lying awake at bed at night and you're struggling to sleep. Not because you're tired, you're absolutely exhausted, but your brain won't shut up. You find yourself going over things over and over again. In fact, you start imagining situations that haven't even occurred yet, trying to fix them in your brain. This is classic overthinking and rumination, and our minds can get stuck in a loop of constantly doing. So what do? We try meditation. That doesn't work. We try taking a sleep supplement before bed. That doesn't work. No matter what we do, our brains are going over and over situations, and we feel ourselves getting more and more worked up to the point where we wake up the next day after maybe having a couple of hours of broken sleep, feeling twice as exhausted, twice as stressed, twice as frustrated, and this just compounds over time, and we feel that there's no way out of it. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to overcome that and how to stop your mind being so loud when the rest of the world goes quiet. Okay, so we know that worrying doesn't actually solve a problem, so why do we feel the need to worry? Well, quite simply, worrying is familiar. Worrying over a problem seems safe. And if we have a problem, then why would you not worry about it? Because you want to know how to fix it. It feels normal to worry about something because everybody worries, so I'm not doing anything bad here by worrying about a problem. In fact, it's welcome to worry about a problem. We're taught to try and fix a problem when it arises. And that is true, but there is a certain caveat to this, is that we cannot think ourselves out of overthinking. You'll have to excuse my handwriting, by the way. I am left-handed. And when this happens, it just creates a loop that continues and continues and continues and doesn't seem to end until we just end up exhausted, and the worrying causes us to finally fall to sleep. But it's not a restful sleep, it's not a stressful sleep. You find you wake up tense, you find you wake up still exhausted over exactly the thing which is bothering you. You wake up and it's there again, and it can be torturous. But of course, like we said, it's safe, it's normal, it's familiar. It would be irresponsible of us to not worry about something which is potentially going to happen. So what do? Well, first we need to change the way that we deal with worry. We need to change the way that we think about things. And we do this through a framework. Because when we have a thought in our head which will not end and will not stop and will not go away, it creates what's called an open loop. And our brains do not like an open loop, because in the gap is a solution. And our thought process just continues to spiral and spiral and spiral. And where you start worrying about one problem, you find before you know it, you're worrying about a second, and then a third, and then a fourth. And all of this is still compounding because we haven't closed the loop. We haven't closed the loop, meaning we can't get to the solution. And this is why when you start worrying about one thing, next thing you know, you're thinking about something which hasn't happened yet, and this just gets worse and worse and worse. And we invent things in our mind, situations that can occur. What maybe I've had a few sick days this month, so money's going to be a bit tighter. You're now thinking of who's going to take custody of the dog when you eventually lose your house. And again, this isn't your fault, because we have been taught that this is normal and this is safe. But overthinking and worrying can negatively impact every aspect of our lives, because we are overtired and we are stressed, we're more reactive. We eat worse foods because we are underslept. We don't perform as well, we don't exercise. This is a very serious problem for the people who suffer with it. So in order to close this loop and to get to the solution, we have to break the problem down. Rather than sitting there thinking about it and ruminating over it, we have to name the problem, because to name a problem is to understand the problem, and to understand the problem is to solve a problem. So first we have to name the problem. What is it exactly what it is you're worrying about? Because our brains are constantly churning, and we can have up to 60,000 thoughts in a single day. 60,000 thoughts. Try and count to 60,000. It will take you quite a while, but it's constantly there ticking away in the background. And unless we actually identify the problem, those thoughts are going to keep going round and round and round. So you have to name the problem. What specifically is it about the problem that you're worried about? So if it's money, get specific. What about money? What is it about money that is causing you stress? If it's not having enough. Okay, so then we go not having enough. Not having enough for what? Get specific. Break the problem down. Not having enough to pay the mortgage. Okay, so how severe is that? Are you just slightly? Are you massively? Or is it catastrophic? Because even if it's catastrophic, just worrying about the problem won't actually solve the problem, which is why, like I said, we have to name the problem. Okay, so now we've named the problem. We are worried about our mortgage payment this month. So now, how do we work towards a solution? We understand the problem. We know now what the problem is. We've got a name to it. So now how do we fix the problem? How do we understand the problem? And we do this in two ways. The first one is we consider worst case scenario. Okay, worst case scenario, we lose the house. That's worst case scenario. All right, well, they go even deeper. What's worse than that? Our family breaks up, and then you'll be homeless, and then you'll be dead. This is where the brain goes. We're gonna struggle to pay our mortgage this month due to not having enough money because of something which has happened. So then you're gonna end up in us being dead. Now we know this isn't gonna be the case. If we miss a mortgage payment, again, just conjecture here, just put it out there. If we miss one mortgage payment, are we likely to have our house repossessed? And is our family going to break up? Are we going to move homeless? And then we're going to die? Chances are we're not. Okay, so what we've done is I've identified the problem. We've ran the worst case scenario. So really the worst case scenario is it won't look good on our credit score. Money's going to be a little bit tight. Okay, so if money's going to be a bit tight, how can we find money elsewhere? How can we make more money? Can we work more hours? Can we cancel a few subscriptions? Can we do something which saves money in the short term to fix the problem? And by doing this process, we identify the problem, we then identify the solution. And I always advise to people, write this down, actually write it down. Because to take a thought from our brains and put it into the physical world means that it exists, means that we can see it there and we can work out a framework. We can work out the worst case scenario, okay, and how likely is that to actually happen? And then we go, well, we have the problem, we know the problem, we understand what the problem is, now let's come up with a solution. Rather than it sitting in your head and having all these different open loops, suddenly, because we've named the problem and we've written it down, the open loop can get closed and then we can get to a solution. And you simply rinse and repeat this problem. And what you'll find is when you start to close these loops in your mind, you stop overthinking, you sleep better, you think clearer. Suddenly the problem doesn't seem as much and you can come up with a solution. Often problems can feel compounding and suffocating because we have multiple problems going on in our minds and we don't actually know how to fix them. Whereas if we start breaking them down one at a time and we get specific and we get the frameworks in place and we start to name the problem and come up with a solution, then that means that we're able to identify the issue and actually solve the problem one by one, meaning that huge problem becomes much smaller and much more manageable. So the next time you find yourself ruminating over an issue, get a piece of paper out and write down what is the problem, then get specific. What specifically is the problem? What is the consequence of that problem? And then go, what is the worst case scenario of that problem? And then bring it back, rein it back in. How likely is that to happen? How likely is that to happen? Okay, we've got to where we need to be. How do I now begin to solve that problem? And then close the loop. And by doing this, you'll be able to sleep better, feel better, reduce your stress levels, and be able to efficiently solve problems as they occur because you have been given the framework, a framework which no one teaches you. And this is the kind of thing I teach inside my Reclaim Life community, which you can join now with a 2-week free trial. Link in the description of this video.